I think that could make the difference, you know, like we talked about, between them getting a whole gig, where if they had just some basic chops, but they have a fantastic voice, but just those basic piano chops can get them that gig that, you know, makes the difference.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, it's become a bit of like a side project, you know, a bit of a passion project for me, is this idea of, you know, singing and playing piano together. And that there is a whole other world of performance opportunities that open up to you when you do that. You know, I remember I got asked to play at the at Bemelman's Bar, which is in the Carlisle Hotel, which is, you know, Bobby Short used to play, you know, every night in the Carlisle Hotel, and it's where, you know, JFK and Marilyn Monroe had their, you know, had their affair, and it's where the royal family stays when they come to New York, and every elevator has a guy in a white tuxedo. You know, it's one of these kind of old New York places that is frozen in time, and every night in their bar they have a trio, and the pianist is always a singer, and it's a great gig. You know, and they asked me, "Oh, we know you sing great. Do you play piano?" And this was a few years ago, and I hadn't done any professional gigs in New York on piano. But you know, I got the email and I immediately wrote back, "Oh yes, of course I do, all the time." Ha ha
Right, the
ha.
immediate yes, and then
Yeah,
after the
yeah. And then I was like, "Oh God, you know, I have to do this gig for a week now, and I'm playing piano, and I have, you know, a guitar and a bass, and there's no drummer, and I got to be holding it down." So, you know, in those kind of like break glass of emergency, you break it down to the most simple ways of accompanying yourself, and that really is, you know, I guess the number one way would be your left hand. If you're following along on a lead sheet, you just find those chords and you play the roots, right? It seems very simple. It might even be rudimentary, but if you're just playing simple 4-note shell voicings in your right hand, and by shell voicings, I mean it's a C major 7, so we're going to play anything but the root. We're going to play 3, 5, 7, 9, E, G, B, D. Or you might want to put it in a different inversion. You might want to start with the 7th and play B, D, E, G, which is 7, 3, 7, 9, 3, 5. So when I say shell voicings, that means you take your major arpeggios, your minor arpeggios, you get rid of the root, and you turn them into these 4-note voicings. And then you just invert those all over the place. And then with your left hand, you're just playing roots. You're just playing roots on the bass. And you'd be surprised how much mileage you can get out of that. And that's kind of your first introductory step. Then, as you get a little bit deeper with it, your left hand starts playing in 2. So instead of the roots, now you're playing the roots and maybe the fifths on beats 3 of every measure. And now you're kind of getting this boom, 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 boom. And once you can kind of do that on autopilot, because for me, you know, I'm also messing around now with playing trumpet and playing piano at the same time, Nicholas Payton style. And the thing is, you can't engage your brain on both at the same time. So one of these has got to be on autopilot. And usually it's the bass lines, right? So I'm playing rhythm changes and my left hand is just like hive brain, mind of its own. You know, I could do it while I'm talking on the phone to somebody else. And I'm still thinking about being creative on the trumpet. But when you're just starting doing this as a vocalist, that, you know, phenomenon can be the same, where you feel like, oh gosh, if I think about what I'm going to sing, I'm going to play the wrong chords, or I'm going to lose. If I stop paying attention to the bass notes, then I'm going to forget the words to the song. And it's a different coordination that you have to learn. But the more complicated you get with it, then all of a sudden now you're playing roots and fifths in the left hand, and you get familiar with that. Now you can start playing bass lines. And this is where I've really gotten, you know, I've nerded out to the point where I'll go and listen to Joey DeFrancesco or Larry Goldings, and I will transcribe their left-hand bass lines. You know, I will listen to Bob Crenshaw, and I will listen to Ray Brown and Ron Carter. And it's like I'm a bass player. I'm transcribing their bass lines because I'm so excited about accompanying myself. So, you know, you can go way down the rabbit hole if you want. And, you know, in that case, check out a lot of great organ players because they're always walking bass lines and accompanying themselves. And, you know, also, like I said, the great Tony Bennett and Bill Evans album. I mean, find recordings of, you know, Shirley Horn and these, you know, Nina Simone, incredible pianists who would accompany themselves, and, you know, just go into the shed, because there's obviously more ways to accompany yourself than bass lines and chords. You know, you can also be playing really open, full voicings with 2 hands. But, you know, if you're not, you know, Liberace or Ahmad Jamal or, Meldau or some incredible pianist, maybe you're not quite ready for, open 3 octave spanning 10 note chords, which is totally fine.
No, I think you're right. I think starting from that root position and shell voicing in the right hand is the way to start, and gives a framework of what to build off of for those larger two-handed things. Because really, a lot of times the benefit of taking on piano as a secondary instrument is that it starts to give you a framework in which to place all music, right? Because of the grand staff. So I think you're right about that. I think that's